Good evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. It is that time again, Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Mountain, and 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Hawaii. Welcome to the Backstage Slam, the wrestling podcast of your dreams. I am one of your hosts, Josh, joined this week, and like most weeks, by Amber. Amber, how are you doing?
Amber's fabulous. How is the wrestling world?
Oh, the wrestling world's in shambles. But before we get to that, let me remind everybody that we are here each and every week, Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 Mountain, 4 Hawaiian, with the Backstage Slam. You can find it here and many other places. SemicorePods.com is one of them. You can also go to Semicore Studios if you like the way my voice sounds, because I do a few more podcasts. Also, if you want to reach out to me, just hit me up at Skit Comic on Twitter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page for Semicore Studios. But if you want more wrestling talk, if you want to talk about wrestling a little bit more with me or anybody else from the show, we generally frequent our Discord page at YoBroMMO. And if you care to, lend a little support to Ben in particular, as well as, the rest of us when it comes to the Backstage Slam, go to the Patreon, YoBroMMO, over there at Patreon. You can follow Ben on Twitter at YoBroMMO, and you can follow Anna at Catwoman13618 on Twitter as well. You are not hearing Ben and Anna tonight because Ben has come down with a case of the crappy feelings. Yes, having young people around has a way of spreading germs, and not the big bad dangerous germs that everybody is trying to prevent, but even with the pandemic going on, there are still the usual bugs and, just regular illnesses going around. So Ben's come down with that. And Anna's taken some time to spend with her special someone. So, honestly, I was quite surprised, because who wants to spend Saturday night with a loved one? Honestly, really, right? I do, because I love all of you guys is out there listening right now. Okay. Now that we have gotten that out of the way, as I was saying, the wrestling world is kind of a hot mess right now, because not only is there COVID-19, and not only are there a ton of sexual misconduct allegations, but there are people losing their jobs for various reasons, including the Impact champion Tessa Blanchard, who lost her job. Well, let's just say she didn't lose her job. There's just somebody else doing it there now. So, apparently, she was asked to, shoot some promos at home because, self-quarantine and whatnot, whatever the case may be. And from what I've read, it just didn't happen. So, Impact said, okay, we've had enough of the shenanigans, and we are ready to cut ties. Tessa Blanchard, the first top women's champion in a men's world, in a men's division, as it has traditionally been, out on the proverbial streets. The question is, of course, where does she go from here?
Apparently AEW.
You think so?
That's the rumor mill, yes.
See, that would be a pretty interesting choice. Rumors and speculation are, of course, going to be running wild. Forgive me as I steal a lot of other people's phrases here, but she doesn't exactly have a great reputation in the locker room as far as people on the internet talking. Of course, the people on the internet aren't there; they're just kind of parroting what they're told, as I'm doing now, and I don't fail to see the irony. But would AEW want to have somebody with that kind of reputation take a chance on somebody like that, even though, by and far, she is one of the, if not the absolute top female wrestler in the world right now? Do you think they would want to take that chance?
There's always heat, but I mean, like you said, top female wrestler right now might be worth the risk. They could put it in her clause. Tony Khan's a good businessman. He would protect himself and his business.
No doubt, no doubt. And it's usually in a lot of different companies in their contracts that there is essentially a morals clause that you have to, actively represent the company in a positive light. If you make the company look bad, then, you could be out. I think AEW would benefit from someone like Tessa Blanchard on screen. For sure, definitely. She would be a fine addition anywhere on screen. And if... See, it's really hard for me to wrap my head around Impact dropping her, for one. Because if there was anybody that needed that kind of draw, as far as uniqueness, it's them. I don't want to say they're struggling, but they are certainly not the number 2 company in the country. AEW instantly took that spot once they signed on with TNT. But could they be number 3? Is Ring of Honor number 3? See, there are a lot of questions just kind of up in the air with that. And Tessa being, I guess, a free agent now, it definitely raises a lot of eyebrows when it comes to speculation. But also released Michael Elgin. Watched this guy a lot in well, I don't want to say a lot, but watched him in New Japan. Good talent, for sure. But again, it's the accusations that follow him, the reputation that people seem to have, the impression they have about him backstage, that seems to hold him back more than anything. So him being released, and not to mention the fact that there was a report that he and Sami Callihan got into an actual fight backstage, reportedly about how a match should start. It led to an actual fist fight. The company said that it did not have any bearing on Elgin's release, although if it happened before he was released, then, I mean, it's got to be like a final nail in the coffin at that point, whatever happened. But Elgin did respond to his release. Let me pull that up real quick. He has a statement about leaving Impact, and he says, "I appreciate the time and opportunities given to me with Impact. That locker room, the film crew, and all the company officials were a pleasure to be associated with. I hope in time things get sorted. For now, I have to look at the bright side. I have more time to spend with my son and reclaim time that has been missed." So it doesn't seem like he is terribly upset about being let go from Impact. And, I mean, he could have a job somewhere else if somebody is willing to do that, considering, rumors and accusations that have been made. But speaking of accusations, one of the things that I mentioned briefly a few moments ago, there's this movement that we briefly talked about last week that how do I approach this? I wish I remember the hashtag, honestly. There are a lot of people coming out telling their stories about acts of sexual misconduct when it comes to not only, famous wrestlers, but also indie guys and the like. Stories of people that maybe you've never heard of. In Impact, I know Joey Ryan hasn't exactly been a household name, but he's certainly managed to become a name amongst the internet wrestling community. But then there's like Sammy Guevara, who tweeted out years ago something about wanting, and mind you, I have no doubt that it was all tongue-in-cheek. Doesn't make it right. Let me clarify that. It doesn't make it right, not by any means, but he made comments or tweeted about wanting to rape Sasha Banks or something along those lines. And, of course, made the apology that is kind of, I don't know, obligatory. I've learned my lesson. I know now that's not cool, yada, yada, yada. The question is, what is going on? What is going on with these guys? We've had to see a lot of male wrestlers in particular come out recently and defend their words or actions from years ago. Some people do say that, oh, this thing that happened, it was A, either so long ago, or B, why didn't anybody speak up about it? You know what? I think I'm speaking correctly here when I say, it's not always easy to come out and accuse somebody, because it puts you in a spotlight. It makes you the subject of being judged and ridiculed by thousands of people, especially when that someone is, I'm not going to say famous, but they have a following. You open that door to their following making your life hell, and that's it happens. It happens. Now that's just on the accusation level. If somebody went to a legal level, that's when things really started hitting the fan. Now, in a perfect world, if something happened to anybody, not just women, not just men, but if somebody's ever put into a position where they are a victim of sexual misconduct, then ideally they would be able to report these things, and the only thing that would happen is an investigation would occur and the facts would come out, whatever they may be. Unfortunately, the court of public opinion is rabid. There are so many people that just don't understand how hard it is to come forward to begin with. And I gotta be honest, I am one of those people that don't understand, because I don't think I've ever had to think about something like that. But to just outright dismiss an accusation because they didn't come out and speak out right away is wrong. Just like saying somebody should be fired immediately just because of an accusation, that's wrong. What needs to happen is an investigation, evidence. Someone has to be proven innocent or guilty before, we hang them. And honestly,
public opinion hanging happens first. Joshy boy.
Say again?
The hanging of public opinion happens first.
Yes. That's what I was saying. In an ideal world, we would have the investigation first. And people would go nuts based on information that they're given through a formal investigation, rather than going on their gut, I think he's guilty, or I think she's just a slut and regretted it. Because those are the things that I read on a daily basis in our community, not on our Discord, because we at the Backstage Slam, I gotta say, Ben in particular is good about weeding out trolls and jerks. Yeah, the Discord's moderated. If you think that's inhibiting your freedom of speech, by all means, go somewhere else. But in our little circle of the internet, in our little corner, what we're not going to do is be toxic to someone that has a story to tell about being in any kind of situation where they were essentially assaulted. And when I hope those of you listening out there realize, when someone comes out with these stories and tries to tell their story, and it seems like everybody's doing it at the same time, like with Cosby, with what's his face that lives in DC. It's not about jumping on a bandwagon and trying to railroad somebody. Velveteen Dream
it's
is
empowering.
Right. Everybody, when you find out, it happened to somebody else. I thought it was just me. Knowing that it's not just me gives somebody an inner power to tell their story. And that's why when you see one, you see more. I mean, Bill Cosby got away with a lot for many, many, many years before somebody finally said, that guy's a rapist.
And he's getting an appeal, by the way.
Well, until that happens, I don't feel what's the word I'm looking for? I don't feel an obligation to say alleged, because he was found guilty.
No, the appeal is to drop one of the accusations due to the statute of limitation.
So it's less of a I didn't do it and more of a you took too long.
Yes.
Okay. So again, I don't feel bad about saying Bill Cosby's a rapist. Because guess what? He was found guilty in a court of law. Just like O.J. Simpson. Whether or not you were alive during the Simpson trial, whether or not you have hard feelings one way or the other, the big one, the first one, the one with the car chase. The fact of the matter is, nobody can legally say he's a murderer because he was not convicted. Now, you could feel that he's a murderer all you want, but that's not a label that he has earned. And in a civil court, he was found responsible. So take that for what you will, but they basically said, well, you can't call him a murderer. But
so, catch me back up. Which issue are we addressing?
Well, I was
Riddle,
I was just the point I was trying to get to in this particular tangent was that it took one person to come forward and accuse, America's dad, Bill Cosby, before another person and another person and another person came out. Can you imagine how scary that is to make an accusation about someone as beloved as Bill Cosby was? God, that's got to be frightening. You're going to be roasted by so many, regardless of your typical belief systems. This is something that is bigger than partisan politics. This is bigger than, anything that you can pick one side or another over. But it's still one of those things that divides people, because some people say, oh, they have a point. Let's see how this plays out. You have some people that say innocent. You have some people that say guilty. And they say these things without any evidence one way or the other than someone came out and told their story. And the next step after that should always be, okay, an investigation. After the investigation, that's when you should make your mind up, when the facts present themselves. Now, there are some, one story in particular I find does kind of cross into a shades of gray area, and I'm not really sure how to feel about it. And hopefully, Amber, you'll be able to help me figure this one out. Have you read any of the stuff about Marty Scurll?
Yeah.
So, just to see if, because I don't want to get. What's that?
What's your position or conundrum?
Well, there's a lot of things to kind of digest when it comes to his particular situation, which from what I understand is only the one so far. But the way I see it, and I'm trying not to get like real graphic or anything, but Marty Scurll, according to this woman's story, and I'm not going to read it again, don't want to get too graphic. He told her to, we'll say, do something to him, and
suck it.
Okay, I guess. I'm not. The context of one of the most famous, wrestling catchphrases of all time in this situation.
It worked.
So he told her to do it. She did it. And then, as they were about to do more, I believe they were interrupted, and that was that.
Okay.
Now, there are two issues that make me kind of, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. On the one hand, according to what she said, she didn't say no. She went along with everything. So can you help me?
So there's this other position that I'm gonna take. When you have a person who is in a position of power or authority, meaning they can derail or promote your career, let's say, if you don't act in the manner in which they're asking you to act. Some people have gone against their own personal beliefs and values and, let's say, sucked it because, one, this is a person who holds power that could ruin them should they say no, or advance them should they agree. Now, did she verbally say, no, I don't want to do this? No, she didn't. The interruption, meaning that nothing further happened, do we know that she wouldn't have gone along with more than what had happened? That's speculation at best. Can't say, yeah, she would have done it, or she wouldn't have. Maybe at this point, it's regret. Like, I did something that I personally wouldn't have done under other circumstances because this is that made she say no. She did the act, and just because you have regret, remorse later, I can say experience having one too many and a night out, waking in the morning and real, that's the regret and remorse the next morning when you realize I hope I didn't do anything. So, it happens to everyone. Everyone is like, yeah, probably should have done that. But I already did it. The consent was given, the guilt and remorse that she's now.
Yeah, you kind of breaking up a lot there, Amber.
Oh, sorry. What'd you hear?
A little bit about regret, after the fact. Couldn't really put a finger on what your position is, though.
So my thing with it is that he holds a position of power and authority. maturity, which may have influenced her decision to do the initial act, right? And once the initial act was interrupted and nothing further could happen, there was no longer an issue of consent because it was interrupted. So we don't know, and we can't speculate whether or not things would have progressed any further, or if she would have said no, she didn't want to do anything else. But what she is getting is guilt and remorse from doing said act, right? She's looking back on it going, did I really have to do that in order to further my position? We all end up with guilt and remorse when we do something that is against our better judgment. But we do it anyway. That's the after.
So can somebody do something, then regret it, and then say, oh, since I regret it after the fact, I must have been assaulted?
No, because consent was given. Regardless of the fact that you regret it or you have remorse that you did it, there was no non-consent. She wasn't forced. She didn't say no. She wasn't so inebriated that act of giving consent would not have been able, i.e. what that means in the court of law is that you're passed out drunk and you couldn't give consent anyway, and therefore they could say that you were assaulted because you could not give consent at that point because you were too inebriated, you were passed out when this happened. So they consider that an assault. But she did not. She went with it. She did not verbalize no. She didn't say no. It was when things got interrupted and it didn't go any further that she was like probably going, oh, thank God I didn't have to sleep with him. But then what happens is that she doesn't get the progression or the push that she was hoping for or that she was expecting by doing said act. And now she's like, oh, I regret this. I have remorse for doing this. Why did I do this? It didn't benefit me.
Well, from what I understand, she wasn't an employee of any kind. She might have been a trainee, someone taking courses or seminars, something like that.
So there could have been in this person's mind thinking this is somebody who could help my position.
Help with my big break.
Yes.
I know.
When that didn't happen, there's remorse, there's guilt, there's I shouldn't have compromised my moral values and beliefs and done this.
Right. You know, that's an interesting look at that. The other side of this coin is one.
You got to look at the legal definition of assault as well. There has to be consent, no consent, or the removal of consent. So if you're in the act and somebody says, stop, no, I don't want to do this, and you continue, then it's an assault. If they outright say no and you force yourself on them, it's no. And if they're too inebriated, i.e. knocked out and unconscious or have been roofied, and consent cannot be given, then it's an assault. None of those things fit. She did this on her own accord.
And
And now
according to her,
can't
she was
look at herself in the mirror.
very inebriated, and she willingly admits that.
Did she say no?
And
Did
again,
she remove consent in the act?
I don't believe so. Nothing from what I've read has said that so far.
Then
But
she doesn't set the legal standard.
the other side of this coin, and it's mostly different here in the U.S., and apparently this happened in the U.K. She was, 16 at the time.
Well, age of consent is different.
Which, as it was mentioned, and I think it was Marty Skrull's response, that yes, it was legal age of consent, and he met her at a bar.
But you're able to drink there at that age.
So, looking at this situation and the way I've presented it, I could be way off, I don't know. Would you put Marty in the same category as others that have made accusations, or does this fall into kind of a different area?
It's a gray area because one, age of consent is different. It's not a stateside normal. So he wouldn't be charged with statutory rape because it didn't happen in the U.S. Age of consent is different. Age of drinking is different. So also he wasn't providing alcohol to a minor. If she is stating that she was very inebriated when she performed the act, what needs to be able to be proven is that she, at any point in time, told him to stop. Then it becomes non-consensual. If at no point in time before the interruption happened, she did not verbalize a consent withdrawal, then whether she was inebriated or not, she consented to the act. And that's what the court of law is. Yeah.
Okay.
Do I think it's kind of douchey that he's messing around with a 16-year-old? Yeah, I do. I think it's kind of douchey. I think it's kind of creepy. But, the laws are different over there. Had he done that in the U.S., there would be no say because he would automatically fall under statutory rape guidelines, and there would be no need for consent regardless.
Right.
So, because of the location, I think he knows that he got a bye. He got a pass on this one. And if she can't say that she asked him to stop at any point in time, it's a gray area.
Okay. Which, by the way, is a much, much different story when it comes to the accusations against the Velveteen Dream and the pictures that he's accused of sending to very, very underage girls. That's
that's statutory all the way through. That's sending pornographic, illicit pictures to minors.
Yeah, that's it's kind of frowned upon in the U.S.
And across state lines and all that good stuff.
Unless you're a billionaire. Oh, did I see that? Well, look, we could talk about this all day long, but I do think, the speaking out deserved a bit of time on the show, and yeah, this is probably not going to be by any means the last time we talk about this, unfortunately. And as more evidence comes to light, and as more happens from the allegations, we will, update it and cover it on the show here.
Sorry, I was coming in the house, and the dogs are loud.
That's not a problem. We'll go ahead and move into the main topic of the evening, which, as I mentioned in the show notes, it is what makes a great wrestling match. Not just a good one, but a great one. What makes a great wrestling match? What are the elements? What are you looking for when you are getting out your
crowd? Gotta have the...
So, Amber, you say the crowd is a factor in a great match.
Yeah, whether booing, cheering, you still got it. All of it. This is awesome. It adds to the vibe. It makes them vibe more. Makes them want to give more.
I'm going to go ahead.
Remember the old matches? I can recall with Typhoon and Earthquake, right? When the crowd wasn't behind them, it was kind of boring. People weren't really doing much of anything. The matches tend to end quickly, not only because they were rather large individuals and couldn't go for very long, but they ended faster because the crowd just wasn't into it. And I think Vince, being Vince, knew, this isn't going over well. Let's just hurry up and end it.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say that, yes, I think you're absolutely right. The crowd is 100% possibly the most important aspect of having a great match. Now, don't get me wrong. You can have a lot of catch can, great chain wrestling, and the problem is, if there's nobody there to appreciate it, empty arena matches are very difficult to pull off for this very reason. That's right. For a seldom seen gimmick.
I also have been following this Randy Orton, Tommaso Ciampa back and forth, and I'm kind of in agreement with Randy on, people are really digging the high flyers right now and some of the crazy crap that we're seeing in NXT, and that's what's giving NXT the ratings that it's giving. But at what cost? Because you can still get a good match, i.e. Randy Orton and Edge, or, some of the bigger folks. Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley this last pay-per-view, who aren't high flyers, who aren't doing crazy stuff, and you're still getting a good match. You're getting a good performance. And Randy's position is, will you ever make it to the main event if you end up crippling yourself to appease a smaller audience at the Performance Center? And I kind of agree. I've watched some of the NXT pay-per-views and was like, holy crap, dude, that was freaking awesome. But when I was reading his stuff, their longevity isn't going to be much if they keep doing that. And nobody remembers the person that ended up in a wheelchair.
People remember Draws, right?
Just that dude, because he was actually most recently on the dark side of the ring, but outside of that, no.
I mean, that's fair.
So, but you need chemistry with your performers as well. You need to be able to trust the person that you're in the ring with. Like, some people have crappy chemistry and can still pull off a good match. I don't know, let's say Brock Lesnar or Kurt Angle, they didn't really match chemistry wise, but they had one hell of a match. Except for when he almost broke his face. But, like, right now, you're not going to have anybody really wanting to be in the ring with Nia Jax, chemistry or not. So they need to know that they're going to be safe.
Yeah.
Like, that's
an important
a big
aspect.
deal. Like, do I trust this person? I might not like this person in the locker room, and they may not like me, but when we get in there, in that squared circle, can we put on a match and can we both walk away from it?
And another example that we always seem to go back to is Matt Hardy and Edge.
Yeah.
They went through a lot of personal hell with each other, it seems like, and when it came to the Lita situation. But at the end of the day, after Matt loses his job for speaking out about this, he lost his job. And because the fans, which, by the way, I called, because after he was released, I contacted I don't remember who it was, but I contacted a wrestling journalist at the time, and I made mention, hey, they're doing their next show in New York City, arguably the smartest, quote unquote smartest wrestling fans in the world. What are the chances they're going to get through the night without catching hell for firing Matt Hardy? With the chance. And sure enough, the chance started, and next week they kept going, and they kept going until they brought him back. And when they brought him back, there was only one program they wanted to see. And that was Matt Hardy and Edge. Two guys that had an extremely personal issue brought to public attention. And don't get me wrong, Matt is the one that kind of put everybody on blast. But, like as we mentioned before, the court of public opinion is ruthless. People are not afraid to speak their minds. So when all of this happening, and speculation was Matt's going to go rogue. He's going to go into business for himself, and he's going to lay out Edge. It's like, okay. I think Matt realizes that if he does that, he's like legit done with this business. But what had happened was he walked into the room, and he did business because that's what adults do. They had every reason in the world not to trust each other, but they did. And the fact that we have talent out there right now that do have a tendency to land, people on the injury report at times. And I don't know, publicly it seems like there is no remorse for that. But we're getting too far off topic. But like you said, the fact of the matter is trust plays a very important role. Trust, crowd, after all, not that you need a crowd to tell you how to feel about a match, but just being able to feed off a crowd. When I first thought of bringing this particular subject up, one of the first things that came to mind was how many people are going to say it's work rate. Work rate is the number one aspect of having a great match, because I gotta say, work rate is it's a big deal when it comes to having a good match. But when it comes to having a great match, I'm not even sure that that's in my top 5 requirements, having 2 great workers. Because while, yes, Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar knew how to go out there, it was the crowd, it was the story that really fed the intensity. It wasn't the fact that they could wrestle. And on that same note, look at Hogan and Andre. On paper, if you write down all the moves, it was rudimentary, elementary. And it's considered a great match. I'm not going to say it's considered one of the greatest of all time, because, the Flair and Steamboat exist. But the fact that Hulk Hogan, a guy that I have repeatedly, and I mean just absolutely unrelentlessly have said, was never very good in the ring, versus Andre, a guy that, once again, if you look at things just on paper, not a great in-ring competitor, but the fact that these two behemoths, these two massive guys, got together and just did the most basic of wrestling matches, capped off with a body slam from to a guy that's supposed to be unable to be picked up. Which, by the way, that gimmick's it's dead. It's in the ground ever since everybody and their mothers picked up Big Show and slammed him. But when Hogan did it was a pinnacle moment that was being built up to. So telling the proper story in the ring is much more important than actually delivering 150 moves or, chain wrestling. In my opinion, it's absolutely more important than how many flips you can do off the top rope. And don't get me wrong, I love me some flippy wrestling. Will Ospreay is one of the best going right now. Ricochet, amazing. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned, Amber, depending on the schedule, that kind of action, that non-stop, high-octane action, shortens careers. And Randy Orton, I think he is right. At least when it comes to having longevity. The thing about storytelling in the ring and adding it to the crowd combination, making that a duo thing, because you're telling the story for the crowd in the ring, or for the crowd in attendance, I should say. So it's something I've said on this show many times. They've started catering to a TV audience, and that, for this style of entertainment, just doesn't really fly. Because you can't feed off TV at home. You can't feed off the people at home when you're in the middle of the ring, in the middle of arena, surrounded by, 10,000 people. You got to listen to the people. The ones that are there, the ones that are in the building. Bret Hart plays Minneapolis one day, Toronto the next, to drastically different crowds. Now, you can do one of two things when he gets to Toronto. He can continue to try and build the hate, or he just basks in the glory that this is going to be the one place that everybody loves him. And that's what he does. He plays it up big. It's like, this is why I'm here. Da, 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 da. Now, Kevin Owens on the other hand, he can go home, get a major pop, even as a heel, and then, in, say, 5 words, everybody hates him again. That's just talent on a different level. But playing your character, playing your part, working it in the ring is far more important than almost anything other than crowd. Because I still think crowd is the most important factor.
That The Undertaker has lasted 30 years. That character has never undergone a character change. Ever. Survivor Series will be 30 years from Undertaker. He may have became the American badass at some point in time, but he was always the Undertaker. There is a reason he stood the test of time for 3 decades in the ring. Because that man could put on a show. That man is the reason I spent the money I spent so that we could go and not see him at WrestleMania. So he better be at this next one, or I'm going to be very, 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 very butthurt and write him a very, very nasty gram.
Well, one of the things we didn't cover in the news was the official, unofficial retirement talk.
But for 30 years, he has stood the test of time.
Yes.
Name one other person that never underwent a character change.
Well,
with 30 years.
Well, with 30 years, that is quite the caveat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, 30 years. It's hard to match 30 years because you're going back to, 1990?
Yeah.
There's some guys in the 90s that I think could say that Stone Cold, when he became Stone Cold, he's basically lived that.
True.
Since inception.
But he didn't start as Stone Cold.
Well, Undertaker didn't start as Undertaker until he got to WWF.
They needed to create him.
It was Mean Mark Calloway. And even then, he was Kane the Undertaker. And
he lived that day in. He wore the out for the Undertaker year. You don't see people going up to Hulk Hogan and get.
Kind of breaking up again, Amber. I'm having a hard time following here.
Move to the other side of the yard. I'll move back. Sorry, I'm currently watering because the kids want some fireworks. So I have to make sure the house and stuff don't start on fire.
It's a good thing to prevent.
Yeah. So what I was saying is kids now, they don't, and this puts me back a little bit. So this shows my age a little bit. It's, you see the Hulk Hogan, it's make sure you eat your vitamins, right? He didn't live that for his entire time. I think the only other person that I could say lived his character was Ric Flair. Ric Flair has been Ric Flair, has been Ric Flair.
Yeah, yeah. Ric
The
Flair is Ric
money, the
Flair.
schmoozing, the ladies,
For a lot longer than Taker too, actually.
yeah, like he's he has been him from start to finish. We don't get that anymore days. It's um prime example, Brodus Clay. When he came out, he was like, slobberknocker, right? He's supposed to kick everybody's butt. And all of a sudden he's like, what the hell did they turn him into? Like a dancing Tyrannosaurus or some shit?
Yeah.
Like, what? Why did they do that?
Nah, you got me. I haven't a clue.
Like,
WWE has made a lot of questionable decisions
they
over
could
the
have
years.
just kept him Brodus Clay, Like, they could have just kept things where they were, kept people. They don't believe, I don't know, maybe Vince McMahon doesn't believe in the creative team anymore to give creations like The Undertaker, like Ric Flair, like, that are going to stand and hold the test of time. Hell, the freaking Boogeyman, he still does. So your people believe in what they create, have a little bit more faith. Maybe he's just getting too old and senile and can't remember. But it's the characters, it's the story. It's always been the story. It's the reason we go, it's the reason we watch. And it's just been kind of, if I can be honest, a big piece of shit in a toilet bowl lately.
Okay. Don't even know what to say after that. Okay. Well, to
Eat your
to
vitamins. That's what you can say.
say your prayers, brother.
Or you could go, oh yeah, snap into a Slim Jim.
Oh yeah, I love doing a good Macho Man impression. He
Snap
looked
into a
at
Slim Jim.
her with lust in his eyes. Can't do that anymore. But I think to summarize, what are the most important parts of a wrestling match? The crowd, incredibly important to have the oohs and the ahs, the chants. That's your thermometer. That's how you know things are going well. Dead crowd means no matter how great the actual technical wrestling is, it's dead in the water. Uh, psychology. You have to know when to peak a crowd and when to taper it off or when to peak them again. It's all a matter. See, it goes back to the crowd. Psychology, working the match, working your character, and doing your job as a performer, as an actor slash athlete. I think those right there are the two most important aspects because with those two things, you can have a wrestling match with 5 moves total, right? And as long as it's done well, then that's all that matters. Goldberg has never been accused of having, the greatest match of all time. But there are times when he has had a great match because it is exactly what it needed to be and told the right story at the right time. So, technical prowess is nice. It's a garnish to your dish. But when it comes to making a great match, yeah, you need your garnish. But you also need your base meal, and that comes from the crowd and psychology. Working those two things will get you there every time. Making it a 60-minute classic with, holds and top rope jumps and all of this and that, all of that extra stuff takes it from great to classic. So, just for the sake of our conversation here today, a great match has those two elements every time. Okay, I think we did a show. So don't forget to join us each and every week right here to catch the Backstage Slam. This has been episode number 198. Before we go, Amber, is there anything you want to tell everybody out there in listener land?
Be safe, y'all.
Wise words. Definitely heed that advice. But I'm just going to go out with the same two words that I go out with every week when I tell everybody, too sweet.